Hey everyone, this is Matt, and in today's video I'm bringing you the zero extra or no extra deck festival deck list for Eldlich. So the current festival at Master Duel is, they call it extra zero, which I guess just means like no extra deck, right? So it's a festival where you're not allowed to use your extra deck. Like I literally have no card, you cannot have any cards in your extra deck. And yeah, I made an Eldlich deck. I already got through most of the festival. I got all the gem rewards. Now there are legacy passes which I don't care about. So I think this is a good time for me to share this deck profile with you all, especially since some of you requested it. So alright, let's get into it. So we do start out here with 2 Eldlich the Golden Lord. Just like in all the other Eldlich videos you've ever seen me make, you never ever need your 3rd Eldlich. You just don't. Like, if one of them is banished, it doesn't matter. Like, both, it's very hard for both to get banished, and you can kind of play around it, right? Especially Ice Dragon's Prison. Like, you should never have a situation where you have an Eldlich on field and one on the graveyard, because then you're susceptible to Ice Dragon's Prison. But however, unless you have a Elixir that can save, like, there are ways around it, basically. So, just you don't need more than 2. Stop playing 3. If you're playing 3, you're doing it wrong. Also, quick disclaimer, this is not a ranked event. This is like a casual event, so, you know, a lot of these cards, other than the Eldlich engine pieces, you know, you can play around with, right? Like, you don't have to take it super seriously. But I will say, having 2 Eldlich is very important. Like, don't mess with that ratio. All right, let's go into 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Yeah, this is back row protection. It's just a big 3K beater. It searches spell traps. It's just great. Yeah, back row protection is very important in this festival. One thing I've noticed, and you'll notice here in this deck list, I do not run Max C. Why do I not run Max C? Because I feel like a lot of decks in this format, they don't. Let's just say Max C doesn't pay as many dividends, right? What I've seen personally in this festival, and you know, I did when I first made this deck, I did make it with Max C. A lot of Floowandereeze. Floowandereeze is probably the most popular deck. They never special summon, so Max C is useless. A lot of adventure decks, and by adventure I mean pure adventure. And pure adventure decks don't honestly summon all that much. Yeah, a lot of like gimmicky decks, like for example, summon one monster, equip a bunch of quick spells, attack for game type of decks. A lot of back row decks, right? So in general, I would say, you know, you don't really need Max C in this format. Like it's not gonna get you that much. So I just bother not running. All right. So let's talk about, so those are monsters, just 5, that's all you need. Spells. So I've been playing around with these ratios, but we do not have access to Pot of Extravagance or Pot of Prosperity because you need an extra deck to use them. However, we do triple down on Pot of Duality. Am I saying, oh wait, but doesn't a ratio of 3 increase your chance of seeing more than 1 in your opening hand? Yes, but the fact that I also have Cursed Eldland kind of helps that a little bit, and I'll explain why. So let's first talk about card demise. So this card is great in back row decks because basically when you get to a certain point, you can just play this and you just draw 3 cards for free. And you just set them immediately. So why do I not run this in this main deck? Because I feel like in your opening hand most of the time, it's kind of bricky, right? Like let's say you open this in 4 traps, you set 4. There's no point in playing card demise at that point because let's say you draw 3 traps. You'll only be able to set 1 of them, and then the other 2 go to discard. So this is a card that you want to either search off Lord of the Heavenly Prison or draw on a future turn. You don't want it in your opening hand, right? So, you know, when I build my Eldlich decks, like for like the, you know, ranked or whatever, I try to reduce the number of quote-unquote useless cards in my opening hand, or like cards that I'm not going to use right away, right? And I feel like you never really want to open card demise. This is a card you want to draw later or search off Lord of the Heavenly Prison. So yeah, this is just like, you know, instead of running 2 Extrav, 2 Duality, I'm running 3 Duality, 1 Card Demise, because Card Demise is at 1 in this, I think in Master Duel, the regular ban list, it's at 3. But yeah, I don't think it's worth running, because like, you know, again, it's only really useful if you can actually set the 3 cards that you draw. If you can't, then it's not so good. But this has come in handy. Sometimes it just helps refill your hand after like a rough turn, right? Or like, let's say you get lightning stormed or your back row gets cleared. If you draw this or you play this next turn, you can basically like get 3 new traps, right, and you're good to go again. So 3 Pod Duality. So Pod Duality in this case can be searched off Lord of the Heavenly Prison, right? Unlike Extravagance, you're not limited. Like the 3rd Extrav is useless, right? You're probably never gonna play the 3rd one. The 3rd, any number of dualities is good because you know, ideally you want to see one in your opening hand. Let's say you see two, then ideally if you see two, then you also see either Cursed Eldland or Eldlich. So I do run 2 copies of Cursed Eldland. For those of you who follow my channel, watch my content, you know I hate Cursed Eldland. This card sucks. I hate it. It's just stupid. And I made like a whole video talking about why it sucks. Like it takes up back row slots. It's kind of shitty going first. Like there's a number of problems with it, right? But in this, because a lot of cards are like either banned or not useful in this festival, like they have a different ban list, right? I figured, you know what? I'm just gonna run Cursed Eldland, just because it's kind of funny against adventure decks, like pure adventure, like from what I played. It's one of the few outs to, it's a pretty good out to like the Floowandereeze barrier statue, right? Assuming you're not under D shifter, you can use Cursed Eldland, search your Eldlich, send Eldlich to the graveyard, take out the barrier statue, and then you're good to go, right? So, yeah, and Floowandereeze is like all over this festival. So, yeah, so this deck is definitely leaning more towards I hate Floowandereeze. I wanna mess up, you know, fuck up Floowandereeze. So, yeah, Cursed Eldland is pretty good at that job. In other deck matchups, not so much. And going first, this card, honestly, this card is a brick. But, yeah, I did find some use for it, and I didn't really, and there were like no other pot cards or like, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could probably like cut Duality down to 2 and then swap these Cursed Eldlands down, like out for like traps that are better for going second, like maybe a 3rd Needle Sealing, right? Like there's a number of other, maybe a 3rd Witch's Strike. Like that's fine. If you want to cut Cursed Eldland, or if you want to cut anything from this deck, cut Cursed Eldland. Maybe get a 3rd Witch's Strike, maybe get a 3rd Needle Sealing, whatever. Just cut it. This is like your top cut right now. But I found use for it. Especially against in the Floowandereeze matchup, so that's why I like it, and because Floowandereeze comes up a lot. Yeah, so those are the spells. Yeah, feel free to cut Cursed Eldland. 3 copies of Torrential Tribute, same as my regular Eldlich deck. This blows up the board, enough said. 2 copies of Needle Sealing, same. It's just 2 more copies of Torrential, just slightly different activation conditions. I've seen Floowandereeze players who thought they were funny, like, oh, they try to play around Torrential, so like they set up a board on your turn that has like 4 monsters, but then on their turn they don't summon, they go straight to battle phase because they're like, oh, I don't want to trigger Torrential. You can just flip Needle Sealing on them in the battle phase and they're dead, right? 2 copies of Trap Trick. This should go without saying. This on my other Eldlich deck. This searches like most of your other traps. 2 copies of Witch's Strike. I recently posted, my last video was a video of me playing in this Extra Zero festival against a number of couple decks. This card will just win you the game straight up. It's so good. Run 3 of them if you want. I was perfectly fine with 2. Cut a Cursed Eldland for a 3rd Witch's Strike, and you'll be great, right? 3 copies of Elixir because, you know, goes without saying. Like this is a core Eldlich engine piece. Do not run fewer than 3. 2 copies of Ice Dragon Spin. So what's this about? Yeah. So technically, Floowandereeze. This doesn't really hurt Floowandereeze that much. Although it can be an out to barrier statue. So a number of the Floowandereeze like birds do not banish after they leave the field. They go to the graveyard. So Apex Avian, Ryza, the barrier statue, like even M-Pen, they go to the graveyard, right? So you know, if you get locked into you can only summon wins, like Ice Dragons, like see if you can grab one of their if they have any wind monster in their graveyard to out the barrier statue or to out one of their other birds. So like M-Pen can be recycled, but Apex Avian cannot, Mega Ryza cannot, barrier statue cannot. So if you get rid of those 3 birds, they're gone forever. Like Floowandereeze have no way of recycling them. Okay, just gonna skip real quick. 2 copies of Walkara, 1 Conquistador, same as my regular Eldlich Master Duel video. It's just like standard Eldlich core. Don't mess with this ratio. Okay, so let's talk about counter traps. So 3 Solemn Strike, just like in my regular Master Duel Eldlich video. This card is great. It messes up a lot of decks. They put up a negate, you just say no to their negate, or they try to whatever. Like so. You know, they're not summoning access code, but they are like using monster effects still. So, Solemn Strike is still gonna be great. So, 3 Solemn Judgments. So, for those of you who watch my other videos, you should know I do not have Solemn Judgment in my regular Master Duel deck. So, why did I put it here? 2 reasons. 1, I've noticed that in this festival, there's a lot of people who opt to go second, way more than usual, and just run like back row clear out the wazoo, like evenly matched, like lightning storm, whatever. So I did start the festival with just Lord of the Heavenly Prison, and note that IO is banned, right? So there's no Imperial Order. And I felt that after losing, like having a bad time against decks that made me go first, or like who were okay going second, like yeah, well I definitely wanted more copies of Judgment, which is more back row protection. It's just really good. So that's reason number one, just more back row protection. You know, so that way you don't get cheesed, right? There's a lot of cheesy decks in this format, in this festival. Another reason you want Solemn Judgment, it's amazing against Floowandereeze, baby. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Solemn Judgment can negate summons, any summons, normal summons, special summon, it doesn't matter. It can negate summons, right? That means any Floowandereeze monster that summons can be negated by Solemn Judgment. And if they get negated, it just ends their turn completely, right? So, in general, Floowandereeze have two normal summoning chains that they can establish. One through their map, and one through their just regular normal summon. If you hit their regular normal summon with Solemn Judgment, that chain is done. It's dead, right? Map can set up normal. You can't negate map with Solemn Judgment, like the activation. Not so you can negate it when they play the map, but then they can just play another one. But ideally, you want to stop map when after it's already on the field and it activates, right? So what you want to do is you want to hold Solemn Judgment for their big birds. Okay, so the little birds, Robina, Eaglin, they're all weak as hell, right? They do nothing other than just search better cards. So you want to, if you have Solemn Judgment against Floowandereeze, you're going to wait until they summon a big bird. Or possibly the barrier statue. If you have no other outs for the barrier statue, you can use Solemn Judgment for the barrier statue. So let them use Robina, let them use Eaglin, and then once their Ryza hits the field, use Solemn Judgment. Okay? They cannot chain block, use Solemn Judgmenting the Ryza summon, right? This is like, this literally just kills the summon, and their turn is over, basically, right? So they normal summon Ryza, Solemn Judgment, it's in the graveyard, you never have to deal with Ryza again. They normal summon Apex Avion, you Solemn Judgment, you never have to deal with. They normal summon M-Pen, you Solemn Judgment, it'll go to the graveyard. They can recycle it later, they just need, like, basically all the little birds. They need Shree, they need Toucan, they need everything, right? But you don't have to deal with M-Pen that turn if you Solemn Judge. So Solemn Judgment is amazing against Floowandereeze. In my opinion, better than Solemn Strike, because it's hard to hit Solemn Strike because they usually chain block their little birds. Oftentimes they run out of chain blocks. So if you do get a Solemn Strike, when should you use it? You should use it on Eaglin. So of the little birds, Eaglin is the one you want to Solemn Strike. Why? Because Eaglin is the only little bird that searches the big birds. And the big birds are the problem. The little birds don't matter. So if you can stop the Eaglin from searching their big bird, they're screwed, right? They have to basically hard open the big bird. So Solemn Strike the Eaglin. Let's say you have another Solemn Strike, or maybe they already have the big bird. Solemn Strike the M-Pen, obviously, is on summon effect, assuming they can't chain block it, right? And obviously, if you can Solemn Strike Ryza, that'd be great as well. But usually if they tribute summon, whatever they tribute summon, it can immediately chain block. So it's really hard to Solemn Strike the big birds because of that. Although Apex Avion, the negate, you can Solemn Strike it. But if they have Apex Avion, you'd rather Witch's Strike, right? Anyway, so yeah, so Solemn Strike Eaglin if you can. Otherwise, Solemn Strike the big birds. And then Judgment, only Judgment the big birds. Don't bother Judgmenting on Eaglin or Robina. Let them search the big bird off Eaglin and then kill the big bird with the power of Solemn Judgment. Okay, Floodgates. So they limited Rivalry, Gozen, and Skill Drain to 1. So we have one of each because they're still really good Floodgates. Skill Drain single-handedly wins the Floowandereeze matchup. Gozen and Rivalry stop Adventure. Gozen also really good against Floowandereeze because it locks them into their water birds, right? So let's say they summon Robina. After Robina to search, you chain Gozen. They're locked into water birds. So all their boss birds are wins. Eaglin is a wind. Yeah, so they're locked into Robina's tree. That's really bad for them. However, one Floodgate that did not get limited in this festival, and it's really good only in this festival, in my opinion, is Tikaboo. There can be only one, so I run 3 of them. I don't know if this was an oversight, but yeah, they decided to limit the other Floodgates, but not this one. So because Floowandereeze is the most popular deck, Tikaboo just wins because it's the best freaking... It's literally the best Floodgate. Like, Floowandereeze cannot play through Tikaboo. They just can't. They instantly lose, so just run 3 of them. yes, this card does nothing against the any like adventure matchups, but that's okay because you're gonna see more Floowandereeze and you're gonna see adventure in this festival. So yeah, yeah, this locks you out of your Eldlich engine, but you can just sit on Eldlich and hopefully Lord of the Heavenly Prison and then just beat over them, right? But yeah, all your Eldlich cards, all your other Eldlich cards will basically become bricks at that point. So yeah, that's the deck. One more thing about Solemn Judgment. Another reason why you should definitely run 3 in this festival. There's a lot of back row decks. I've had a lot of Eldlich mirrors. I've seen a lot of like just cheesy, you know, Inspector Border back row, like a lot of back row decks in this format from what I've seen. And Solemn Judgment helps you win those matchups. So yeah, Tikaboo. Like again, the only reason we're running Tikaboo is because we can't run more skill drains. We can't run more Gozens. Otherwise, we would, right? So people, why don't you run Tikaboo in like your main deck and like the ranked? Because the other floodgates are better, honestly. Yeah, Tikaboo is not useless. It does stuff, but skill drain just better, Gozen just better. So yeah, Tikaboo is like, okay, well, if they're not gonna give us these other floodgates, we're gonna play this one. So yeah, that's the deck. Profile, you know, feel free to cut Cursed Eldland or the third Pot of Duality for other things if you want. Yeah, I basically adapted this based on my experience. You know, like I started this festival playing Maxis and like 0 Solemn Judgments, and then over the course of time, I went to 3 Solemn Judgments and cut Maxi. So yeah, this is based on my experience. Maybe your mileage may vary. I don't know if they like how they do the matchmaking, if it's based on rank, but yeah, I found that yeah, this deck is really good, really easy to farm. You know, points and like gems or whatever. So yeah, this should help you do that. All right, thanks for watching the video. Yeah, there'll be more content coming, but the video after this one should actually be an unboxing video, so stay tuned for that. All right, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.